What if I told you you could stop struggling with histograms and get them perfect every single time in under 60 seconds? Well, you can, and here's how. We're going to look at three distinct cases: stretching a nebula, stretching a distant galaxy, and then stretching a nearby galaxy. Whether nebulae, galaxies, star clusters, or just about any other astronomical structure that I can think of, this technique will work. You won't have to worry about automated histogram scripts anymore, and you can do it perfectly every single time. Let's start by stretching M78, the Casper the Friendly Ghost Nebula. Be aware that for demonstration purposes, I have already prepared the following images by running spectrophotometric color calibration, SCNR if and where necessary, and Star Exterminator to remove the stars. All other editing processes, including Noise Exterminator and Blur Exterminator, were run afterward. We'll stretch the histogram on each image, and then quickly develop them so that you can see how effective this technique is. Alright, let's begin. Open the histogram transformation tool. Now grab the middle icon and drag it to the right side of the light curve. Now in the middle left on the numbers box, raise the value to zoom in on the light curve, and drag the far left icon just to the left of the light curve. That establishes your black point, and you want to establish the black point where the light curve begins. Now we're going to zoom in a little bit more, and drag the middle icon even closer to the right side of the light curve. To do this, we're going to zoom in even further. Watch for any little trace of red, green, or blue on the right side that indicates where the light curve begins. Often there is outlier data. If it is not too far from the light curve, respect the data and stop the right icon there. And while still zoomed in, check the left side of the curve and drag the far left black point icon even closer to the light curve to give yourself a deeper black point. We'll speed through this here, but the process is just continuing to zoom in and get the far left black point icon and the middle icon as close as possible to either side of the curve without cutting into it. That's key. Don't cut into it or you'll be cutting off data. With a little practice, this whole process should take you 60 seconds or less. And there we go, the light curve is finished. To prove it, let's open up the Curves tool and make some adjustments. The Curves tool is just a way to refine the light curve. And honestly, to do almost any editing you might need to with any image, you can accomplish this with nothing other than the histogram transformation tool and the Curves tool. I'll do a separate video soon on how to master the Curves tool, but typically we want to curve down on the low end to darken the space, often curve down on the upper side to darken the highlights, and raise the middle section to bring up the midtones. Work in luminance first and then add color after. We'll speed through this process here and take a look at the final result. And this is the final result. Now, we're going to curve the stars that belong in this image. That requires a somewhat different approach. We'll begin by opening up our star plate where the stars have already been separated, and apart from a spectrophotometric color calibration and an SCNR, no other processes have been run. Then we're going to open up the histogram transformation tool. On the tool, you can select the star histogram that you are working with, in this case the Casper stars histogram. Though with stars, honestly, it hardly matters because mostly you're going to be eyeballing this one. Typically, unless you're working with a very bright background, you're going to leave the left icon, the black point icon, all the way over on the left side, and just drag over the right icon, like you see me doing now, to get the stars at a good brightness. Each image will require stars of a different brightness. You'll have to be the judge of what is appropriate. It depends on really what you want the image to look like when you're done. In your photo, do you want to emphasize an astronomical structure such as a nebula, in which case you might de-emphasize the stars? Or do you want to show the wonder of many thousands of stars within that structure? Sometimes nebulae look great with 1 million stars visible in them. Every image is different and should be edited according to your goals. When the stars are at the brightness that we want, we're going to open up the Curves tool, switch to saturation, and create a C-curve to drag the overall color of the image up. We just want to ensure that the color of the stars shows. We don't want artificial saturation. I know I've said it in many previous videos, but hypersaturated images are a very common issue. Amateur photographers do it because hypersaturated images look eye-catching, at least immediately. But viewers quickly come to see hypersaturated images as unnatural, and that artificiality causes the images to lose interest. Try to keep your colors real, substantial, but real. Now let's put the stars back together with the image. I never use PixInsight for this, even though the Pixel Math tool can do it. But while PixInsight is a great tool for stacking and most functions in editing astro images, it is a weak compositor. Rather, I always composite the star plate back over the subject plate in Affinity Photo, which has powerful compositing options. I simply opened the starless sub of the Casper Nebula in Affinity Photo, opened up the File Explorer and dragged the stars over the Casper Nebula, and used the snap option to align the plates. They are now aligned perfectly. In the box center far right, there are the compositing options. I select the stars and click the compositing option that I want. In this case, the Add option, which gives nice brightness to the stars without making them overwhelming against the subtler shades and colors of the M78 Nebula. And now I'm just going to add a brightness contrast tool into the star layer. Adjust the brightness till I feel the stars are well balanced against the nebula. And then we have our finished image with clear, bright, crisp stars, good color, and good dynamic range. Let's use the same methodology to go about stretching the histogram on the fireworks galaxy. Just as before, we're going to drag the middle icon down to the right side, or as close as we can get it to the right side, of the light curve on the histogram. Then we are likewise going to grab the leftmost icon, the black point icon, and drag it as close as we can to the left side of the histogram, establishing a black point that begins just below the information, giving us good blacks in the image. In the number box's center, we'll use the left box to stretch the histogram as we work. I usually go starting off at 1, then 30 to 50 zoom, then 100 to 200 zoom, depending on how narrow or broad the histogram is, and then just keep working the left and middle icons closer and closer to the left and right side of the light curve. On some astronomical structures, all of the light curve will be pretty much connected and easy to spot. But on other astronomical structures, such as this one, you may notice some outlier data either on the left side or the right side of the light curve. You may choose to respect that data and try to save every bit of information. Or you may choose to close in on the main light curve, which will give your image higher contrast. I find that, as a general rule, if the outlier data is not too far from the main light curve, you should respect it. How far is not too far is something of a subjective matter. As a rule of thumb, if the outlier data begins at a distance no greater than the breadth of the curve itself, I might respect it, and set the left and middle icons outside the outlier data, thus incorporating that data into the image. If it's further than that, it will make the image too low contrast, so I go ahead and bypass the outlier data and move the icons closer to the main light curve. Now let's go ahead and open up the Curves tool and quickly adjust our histogram a little further, bringing up the mids, leveling the brightest points, and darkening the darks just a bit to bring out the space. And in just a moment, we have a perfectly serviceable image of the fireworks galaxy. Now, let's tackle our last, most complex image, a piece of a mosaic of the Andromeda galaxy that I've been working on for some time. When developing more distant galaxies, I find that it's generally better to leave the stars in the image. The galaxies tend to be small enough that they're like part of the star background and so balance well with the stars. But the Andromeda and also the Triangulum galaxies are close enough that they occupy so much of the screen that you have to treat them like a nebulous haze, so I separate the stars out of those. This is just a piece of the mosaic, but we are going to go ahead, same as before, by moving the middle icon closer to the right side of the light curve, then the left or black point icon closer to the left side of the light curve to establish our black point. Notice the left side outlier. It is further away from the left side than the breadth of the base of the light curve, so it is not respected, and the left icon is moved closer to the left side of the light curve to establish a deeper black point. Then we'll keep zooming in on the curve and repeating the process, drawing the left and middle icons ever closer to the light curve. Notice on the right side of the Andromeda light curve that there is a very substantial amount of outlier data that begins very near the main light curve. As the data is near the light curve, it is data that must be respected. In other words, we don't want to lose that information, so we're careful to set the middle icon to the right of that data so that we don't clip it. And we'll see that that effort was worthwhile when we adjust the curves. We'll start as always by adjusting the luminance channel. We want to bring up the mid-range brights, introduce a little bit of a standard S-curve in the middle to enhance contrast, introduce a steeper curve to the bottom to darken the space, and draw down the upper points of the curve so that we don't blow out the brights. Then we're going to throw in a bit of a C-curve on saturation to enhance our color. And just like that, we have a good Andromeda galaxy. Now we're going to put the stars back into the image. We're going to go back to Affinity Photo and drag the Andromeda galaxy into the working area, and then drag the Andromeda star plate over the Andromeda galaxy. The snapping tool is turned on, which will allow us to drag the star plate right over the Andromeda plate, aligning them perfectly, quickly and easily. Then we're just going to pop over to the compositor and choose our compositing method. In this case, screen seems to give the best result. The stars are prominent, but not overblown. Finally, we'll just drag the shadows and highlights tool into the Andromeda background and drag the shadows down just a little to darken the space. When all of that's done, we'll just break out the curves tool in Affinity Photo and adjust each channel of the color till we get a good balance and good saturation and vibrance of each color channel. It only takes a moment, but that's a topic for another video. But the end result is that within a few minutes, we have beautiful images of each of our astronomical structures. And it only took 60 seconds or less to adjust the histograms, which is the single most important part of the whole process. The histogram is the foundation upon which the rest of the image is built. Thank you for watching. Now get out there and shoot the sky.